Let's begin with a principle that exists beneath the surface of every serious system ever constructed. A principle that is not taught in seminars, not written in career manuals, and is actively disguised by the public narrative. Networking has never been a game for those who actually hold power. This is not a provocative statement designed to sound intelligent or rebellious. It is a structural law. Observe any historical record of concentrated authority, ancient courts, political elites, financial dynasties, modern corporate hierarchies. Wherever outcomes are truly decided, networking, as it is popularly understood, has always belonged to those on the margins, not to those at the center who decide fates. Society trains you to believe the opposite. It instructs you that networking is a virtue, that progress is born from connection, that upward movement requires visibility, sociability, and constant presence. You are shown curated images, private dinners, strategic handshakes, exclusive circles of high-value individuals. The implication is meticulously simple. Expand your network, and power will eventually reward you. But this narrative was not designed to elevate you. It was engineered to stabilize the structure. It keeps ambition busy, occupied, and hopeful without ever threatening the core. Every genuine power system operates on the opposite logic. Those who hold power do not expand their network. They relentlessly reduce it. Not because they are antisocial, and not because they lack skill, but because power cannot coexist with indiscriminate openness. Every additional relationship introduces an obligation. Every casual interaction creates potential leverage in the wrong direction. At the summit, accessibility is not generosity, it is erosion. People with real authority do not try to be known by many. They decide, with precision, who is allowed to know them. Access itself is the currency. Control of proximity is the mechanism. The more difficult it is to reach someone, the more valuable that reach becomes. This is not a personality trait of the arrogant. It is a structural necessity for the preservation of authority. Before we go deeper, if these patterns resonate with you, if you are beginning to see the architecture behind the curtain, then your perspective is already shifting. Ensure you do not lose this thread. Subscribe, share this channel, and ring the notification bell. What follows will dismantle everything you've been told about how influence is built. Your engagement is what allows this analysis to continue. At the lower and middle levels of any hierarchy, networking is not just accepted, it is praised. It is labeled as proactive, ambitious, emotionally intelligent. But at the higher levels, the exact same behavior is decoded as a signal of positional weakness. When you are the one initiating contact, following up, reintroducing yourself, or striving to maintain relevance, you are communicating a single, unambiguous message in the silent language of power. I need this connection. And need is always visible. Need always flows downward. This is the paradox most never confront. The stronger your urge to network, the clearer your lack of leverage already is. Those at the top do not seek entry, they define it. They are not trying to be included, they are the boundary. The powerful are not loud, perpetually friendly, or constantly present. They are selectively absent. Their absence creates tension, a vacuum that others must navigate. Real power does not require explanation or validation. It does not need to be performed. It operates silently by shaping what happens when it is not in the room. When decisions slow down in your absence, when progress stalls without you, when alternatives suddenly feel risky, that is power manifesting. And none of that comes from social expansion. Power is not measured by how many names you can list or how many messages you exchange. It is measured by the cost of excluding you. When ignoring you becomes a strategic error, relationships no longer need to be built. They reorganize themselves around you. This is why those who truly hold power are often quiet, distant, difficult to access, and wholly uninterested in being perceived as approachable. They do not talk about relationship building because relationships, for them, are a consequence, not a strategy. They do not operate inside networks. They define the structure that the network must adapt to. This is the buried charge few are willing to face. If you are actively, diligently trying to build relationships, there is a high probability you are unconsciously declaring your lower position in the hierarchy, not through words, but through behavior. Networking exists not because it is effective at granting power, but because it is necessary for social order. This is the part rarely stated openly. If networking truly elevated people into positions of power, it would be far more restricted, far more controlled. Instead, it is promoted everywhere. It is taught publicly, packaged into books, courses, seminars, and sold as a mandatory skill for anyone who wants to rise. Not because it is dangerous to the structure, but because it is utterly harmless to it. It converts destabilizing ambition into safe, sociable behavior. Let's dismantle the core illusions. The first illusion is the belief that relationships create opportunity. Reality operates in reverse. Opportunity only moves toward existing power or leverage. Relationships follow as a byproduct, not a cause. When nothing is lost by excluding you, every connection you form is provisional, replaceable, and structurally inferior. You are tolerated, not needed. The second illusion is that knowing many people is an advantage. In low-stakes, horizontal networks, this can appear true. But in high-power structures, excessive connections signal a lack of boundary control. Power does not require many links. It requires a small number of critical connections positioned precisely at points of constraint. A large quantity of relationships is almost always evidence of an unclear, unanchored position. Those who matter do not constantly circulate, they anchor. The third, and most dangerous illusion, is the belief that meeting the right person will change everything. This is the perfect sedative. It convinces those below to wait for the correct moment, the correct contact, the mythical mentor. It postpones the necessary confrontation with reality. In actual power dynamics, no one hands influence to someone who cannot threaten a loss. There is no right connection when you arrive with nothing that shifts the balance. Influence is not gifted, it is conceded under pressure. Society requires these illusions to maintain stability. Networking converts raw ambition into safe, social activity. Instead of building an unassailable position, people are encouraged to socialize. Instead of creating undeniable leverage, they are trained to generate likability. Instead of becoming unavoidable, they learn to become pleasant. Every step feels productive, yet none of it is destabilizing. This is the core mechanism. Networking does not produce power. It produces the sensation of progress for those who lack it. It keeps you in motion without movement. Meanwhile, real power operates quietly through selection, exclusion, invitation, and silence. Through who is summoned and who never is. Power does not expand its network to search for people. It narrows its network to filter them. Reduction is the strategy. Elimination is the signal. And once power is established, networking appears automatically, but only as a one-directional approach from below. At that point, it is no longer relationship building. It is petitioning. It is an attempt to be accepted. This is why power holders never talk about networking, never teach it, never recommend it. Because from their position, networking is not a tool. It is the noise generated by those outside the center. Comment below with the word architecture if you are starting to see the hidden framework of these systems. Your interaction fuels this channel's reach. Like and share this now. So, let us state this plainly. Networking is not a path to power. It is a game designed for those without power to keep them occupied, hopeful, and stationary while believing they are advancing. Networking does not originate from strength. It originates from uncertainty about one's position. At its deepest level, networking is a psychological response from those who do not control where they stand inside a structure. When you do not know your position, you attach yourself to others to locate it. When you lack clear leverage, you borrow relationships to simulate security. Networking is not a strategy. It is a self-soothing mechanism disguised as ambition. Every act revolves around a core fear: being left outside, not being invited, not being considered when real decisions are made. People do not network because they want power. They network because they fear exclusion from a game they cannot fully see. In the language of power, there is an unspoken signal that is always read correctly. The person who initiates contact, maintains communication, and actively keeps a relationship alive is signaling that their position is not strong enough to pull others in naturally. No amount of politeness or refinement alters this signal. In every hierarchy, the one who needs more sits lower. Networking deceives through the sensation of movement. You stay busy. You meet people. You exchange information. Your calendar fills. It feels like progress. But power is not measured by activity. It is measured by the weight of your absence. If you disappear and nothing destabilizes, your networking was peripheral noise. There is a dangerous confusion between being familiar and being feared. Networking makes you familiar. Power emerges only when others begin calculating the risk of proceeding without you. Familiarity produces comfort, and comfort dissolves authority. Those who hold power do not seek to be liked. They create a controlled level of unease, just enough that their presence cannot be casually dismissed. Observe how power reacts to two types of people. One appears constantly, initiates relentlessly, and maintains contact. The other appears rarely, but every appearance is tied to resources, decisions, or structural change. The first is recognized. The second is remembered. In power dynamics, being remembered always outweighs being recognized. This exposition is a map to a different understanding. If you are valuing this journey, if you see its importance, then you have a role in expanding this conversation. Take action now. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video with one person who needs to hear this. Leave a comment. Your perspective adds to the discourse. The algorithm is a gatekeeper. Your engagement is the key. Networking also feeds an ego-driven need to be seen. Those without position often confuse visibility with value. They believe sufficient presence, closeness, and familiarity will earn relevance. But power does not operate on emotion or goodwill. It operates on leverage and dependency. Without dependency, there is no power. This is why networking is especially seductive to intelligent individuals who have not yet controlled a bottleneck. It gives them the sensation of playing a larger game, while keeping them safely contained within permitted boundaries. They are not blocked, they are not rejected, but they are never chosen. This is the cold law every power structure obeys. Within any network, the one who needs the most relationships is always the one with the least power. The moment you no longer need to be remembered is the moment you begin to become dangerous. And when true power arrives, the need for networking disappears on its own. Not because you became virtuous, but because the rules changed and you are no longer standing at the edge, looking in. Consider a Machiavellian perspective. Machiavelli would never ask, "How many people do you know?" That is the question of someone standing outside. The only question that matters is, who is forced to account for you when decisions are made? In this logic, networking is not a tool for creating influence. It is a signal that influence does not yet exist. Those who hold power do not expand their social circle in search of advantage. They manufacture advantage first, then allow relationships to form naturally around it. Relationships are a byproduct of power, never its source. Machiavelli did not build networks, he built leverage. And leverage is always asymmetric. A relationship only has value when one side loses more by the absence of the other. If your disappearance produces no cost, then every connection you maintain is ceremonial, not power-based. Those who chase networking believe power comes from acceptance. The counterintuitive truth is that power comes from the ability to refuse without consequence. When you can decline, not appear, not respond, and the system must still adapt to you. That is position. The one who cannot say no is always, irrevocably, below. In this world, the powerful are not approached because they are warm or agreeable. They are approached because they control something others need or fear losing. This difference marks the boundary between the player and the played. The one who networks is asking to enter the game. The one with power wrote the rules. There is a hidden danger in networking. It exposes intent. Every proactive approach reveals desire. Every maintained relationship creates obligation. Every obligation is a restraint. And the one bound by the most restraints is never the one in control. Power requires space to maneuver, not a web in which to become entangled. This is why real power is difficult to read. It speaks less, appears less, explains nothing. It does not need to be understood. It needs to be accounted for. Ambiguity is an asset. It keeps others uncertain of boundaries, and that uncertainty itself becomes leverage. If Machiavelli observed modern networking culture, the events, the business cards, the promises of collaboration, he would not see strategy. He would see compensation, activity from those without the authority to shape outcomes, substituting presence for position. Let us be clear, this is not an opposition to relationships. It is an opposition to the illusion that relationships produce power. Only one thing creates power: the capacity to force others to adjust their behavior even when you are not present. Once this is understood, networking loses its appeal because you realize power is not located in who you know, but in who cannot afford to ignore you, whether they like you or not. The inner circle of power is not opened, it is filtered. This is the truth most believers in networking will never accept. No one is given a chance because they are loyal, pleasant, or socially skilled. Those traits matter at the operational level. At the level where real power functions, there is only one criterion. What is lost if this person is removed? Those admitted are not chosen because they are agreeable. They are chosen because excluding them creates risk. Risk to information, to resources, to timing, to decisions, to the structure itself. When a person's absence introduces strategic danger, that person is retained automatically, without asking, without introductions, without any relationship-building ritual. This is where every networking illusion collapses. The inner circle does not need communicators, it needs bottlenecks. People who control a critical step, who gate information flow, who dictate timing, whose participation makes alternatives worse if they are not involved. Power does not care whether you are good or bad. It only measures whether you tilt the balance. Someone charming and easily replaceable will never enter the inner circle. Someone difficult, quiet, and socially unpleasant, but structurally irreplaceable, will always remain, even if no one likes them. This is also why inner circles are rarely warm. Warmth creates emotion, and emotion distorts risk assessment. Power requires cold clarity. Members may distrust or compete with one another, but they need each other. In power dynamics, need outweighs liking every single time. We are dissecting the very engine of hierarchy. If this analysis is altering your perception, do not keep it to yourself. Share this video. The more it is shared, the more the algorithm breaks its own gates. Leave a comment with your biggest realization. Subscribe for the complete deconstruction. Observe how real decisions are made, not in crowded rooms or friendly gatherings, but in spaces where very few are invited. Those invited share one trait. Each holds a piece of the structure that makes the decision dangerous without them. None are there because of networking. They are there because they cannot be removed safely. Those obsessed with networking ask, how do I get in? The correct question is, what do I control that makes excluding me a mistake? Until that question has a concrete answer, every relationship you have is provisional. You may be invited, included in conversation, smiled at, but you are not retained. In power, there are only two states, retained or replaceable. The inner circle does not reward effort, it rewards leverage. No one grants power to someone who cannot cost them something if ignored. This is the dark truth networking culture will never state, because admitting it would collapse the entire illusion it exists to sustain. Those with power do not avoid networking out of arrogance. They avoid it because networking exposes strategic weakness. Every act leaves a trace. When you appear too often, speak too much, connect too broadly, you are unintentionally drawing a map of your own desires. Power does not need you to explain what you want. It only needs to observe who you pursue, where you show up, and how eagerly you try to be included. Networking turns intention into a public signal. And in power dynamics, the one who reveals intent first is always beneath the one who simply reads it. Furthermore, networking manufactures obligation, an invisible tether. The more tethers you accumulate, the less freedom of maneuver you retain. Power requires room to move, not a web of commitments. Those who hold it instinctively reject anything that forces their decisions to be explained, justified, or negotiated. There is a quieter truth. Networking destroys selectivity. When you open access too widely, you lose control over who enters and who is excluded. Power does not keep doors closed to appear aloof. It keeps them closed to preserve the value of access. Easy access is always devalued. Difficulty creates hierarchy. Those with power also understand that networking produces an illusion of equality. Handshakes, casual conversations, shared laughter make those below believe they are on the same level. But power does not exist in equality. It exists in distance. Clear distance stabilizes hierarchy. Networking blurs that distance, which is precisely why it is treated as dangerous, amateurish behavior at higher levels. Networking consumes the rarest resources of power, time, and attention. Every unnecessary meeting, every casual lunch disperses influence. Those with power do not invest time hunting for opportunity. They invest time defending the position that generates opportunity. Any activity that does not reinforce position is eliminated without hesitation. Here lies a paradox outsiders struggle to grasp. The less frequently power appears, the stronger it becomes. Controlled absence creates a vacuum. That vacuum forces others to speculate, to adjust, to wait. Networking collapses this dynamic through constant presence, converting power into familiarity. And familiarity drains authority. This is why, when powerful people observe someone aggressively networking, they do not think, "This person is proactive." They think, "This person is searching for a place." And in power structures, searching for a place means you do not have one. True power does not seek validation, it demands consideration. It does not reject relationships. It rejects relationships that add no leverage, create no risk when ignored, and fail to reinforce control. That is why networking is seen as a game for the lower tiers. Not because it is immoral, but because it becomes functionally unnecessary once power exists. When you control timing, rules, or a critical bottleneck, you do not need to look for people. Others will approach you, carefully, deliberately, and with full awareness of the imbalance that already exists. All debates about networking, all the books and courses, exist only at the lower levels. At the level of real power, the question is no longer who should I connect with, but who gets selected. This is the moment where the frame must change completely. As long as you are asking how to build relationships, you are still standing in the position of someone asking for access. The instant you begin asking who deserves access to you, your position shifts. Power begins precisely at that transition. Selection is not a social skill. It is a strategic function. It is the act of differentiating between what is essential and what is merely noise. The power to select is the power to define reality for others. When you select, you are not being exclusionary out of malice. You are practicing the fundamental discipline of concentration. All forces of consequence in history, military, economic, ideological, have understood that diffusion leads to weakness, while concentration creates impact. Your network should not be a sprawling city. It should be a fortified citadel with very few, very heavily guarded gates. The value of those inside is determined by the impenetrability of the walls to those outside. This is the final, unadulterated principle. Stop trying to be connected. Start becoming connection-worthy through the control of necessity. Build leverage, not a contact list. Create dependency, not friendships. Establish yourself not as a node in a network, but as a switch that controls the current. When you become a switch, the entire network must route through you. That is not networking. That is structural power. And it operates in silence, in absence, and in the quiet, calculated reduction of all that is unnecessary. This is the end of the illusion. The path forward is clear, but it is not the one covered in business cards and elevator pitches. It is the one built on unshakable leverage. If you are ready to build that, let this channel be your compass. Subscribe. Dig into the archive. Share this with someone who is tired of the game. Leave a comment. Let me know what you are choosing to build instead. Your engagement writes the next chapter.